Hi, this is Paul from Peach, and this is just an introductory video on how to install a system in a boat for the first time. Now, it's a wired system, and one of the more time-consuming things is just deciding where you want all the cables to go in the first place. And once you've done that and successfully installed it, you'll find it pretty quick to unclip everything and take the system off the boat, for example, if you're heading off a regatta or something. Okay, the first step is to install the Orlocks on the boat. So for that you need to take the backstay off, if you've got backstays, remove the old swivel, take out 5mm of washers and slip the Orlock on. You can then put the cable into the boat and get all the lengths right for when you install the junction boxes. There are quite a few tricks to installing the Orlock successfully, and that's covered in another video which you can see online. So the best way to lay the system out is to get everything out of the case and lay all the jumper cables down in the boat and get all the junction boxes prepared and put them by the seats where you're going to use them. And this hull here has got a stern mounted wing rigger. I think most hulls these days do have wing riggers. And our preferred place for mounting the junction box on these is on the underside of the wing rigger. So what we'll be doing is daisy chaining the junction boxes together with the jumper cables. The junction box mounted on the underside of the wing rigger, and so we're looking to position that so the cable length is just about right, going from one junction box along the sax board and then back into the next junction box. For fixing the junction boxes onto the hull, we provide these junction box clips, which enable you to take the junction boxes off pretty simply. When installing on wing riggers, you just need to get the junction box clip on the underside of the wing rigger, and the easiest way to do that is to put it onto the junction box. Like so. Decide where the junction box is going to go and then stick it on underneath the wing rigger. Okay. A note about the adhesive that we use. So we use foam backed tape on nearly all our mountings, and we use the 3M VHB brand, which you might be familiar with from many other products. It's extremely good, but as with all tapes, it's worth bearing in mind two things. One is that surface preparation is essential, so the surface has got to be clean, and for that purpose we provide some alcohol wipes that will take off any grease that would inhibit adhesion. And the other thing is temperature. If it's very cold, the adhesive takes longer to go off, so you just need to plan for that. If you stick something on in 0 degrees, it will stick on, but if you then yank on it before it's properly cured, it will just fall off and it's a throwaway job. So just plan ahead, and if it's cold weather, stick everything on at least a day before you really need it. In milder weather, just a couple of hours will do. Okay, so taking this example then, plugging the jumper cable into this junction box, and the other end into this junction box. And we can just, and I've already got clips installed for the jumper cable on the side of the boat, and we can just double check exactly where the junction box is going to reach to. And when we're happy with that, we can take the adhesive backing off and secure the junction box in place. One other important aspect of installing on a boat is to make sure you don't damage it just during normal use. So an obvious example of that is when you're putting the hull on the rack, if you've got any cables that go over the top surface, is to ensure that they're not going to get pinched by the rack when you put the boat away. With Orlock cables, they should ideally be on one of the trailing or leading edge of the rigger, so that again they don't get damaged when the rigger hits something, like when you're coming into land. If you've got what we call conventional riggers, old-fashioned riggers, then they'll just be mounted straight off the side of the hull. In that case, you won't have a wing to install underneath, and the best place is just on the SACS board with the connectors pointing downwards like that. Now, one of the important factors in all this is just making sure that everything stays waterproof. Now, the system is designed to be waterproof, and for any of you technically minded who know your engineering standards, the connectors themselves are rated to IP67, which means they can be submerged 1 metre underwater for 30 minutes. Where things go wrong is usually when things get disconnected and reconnected when there's water around. So if you come in straight after a session or it's raining and you're doing this outdoors, if you're plugging things in and out, then water's very likely to go into the connectors, and that may play havoc with how the system operates. So the best thing to do is, if there's any water in any of the connectors, is to blow it out with an airline. That's the simplest thing, before making the connections. Make sure that you've got sealing caps installed on any unused sockets and that they're pressed fully home. Make sure that the sockets, the plugs themselves are pushed fully home. Make sure that how they're installed, the cable isn't going to get pulled sideways by the way that you bundle the cables. Make sure they're just still relaxed. And then make sure that none of your athletes pull cables in and out just for fun, okay? And that's really your best preventative way of avoiding any water ingress. Just a quick word about the logger mounting. Now, the logger contains inertial sensors which are measuring the acceleration of the hull. So it's very important that the logger is very firmly mounted to the hull. Otherwise, what you'll be measuring is the waggle of the logger if it's just at the end of a spindly bit of metal. So we supply with the system what we call the universal bracket, which is a fairly versatile two-piece swing arm that can be mounted to the hull with the long section, and then there's a swing section so that you can place it at just the right angle. In this instance, it's very nicely installed using this is in an 8, using the bolt between Stokes' feet and coming over with the logger right in front of the cocks. And as you can see, it's very rigid with the hull. It's not going to wave around. So there's, on the user manual, there's some examples of other ways of mounting it. You can disassemble the swing arm from the main unit and orient it in a different position. So for example, you could have the main piece positioned on the side of the hull and turn the log around 90 degrees on that and have it facing in that way. Anyway, leave it to you to work out what suits your boat best. Okay, now the rotor display we've got here mounted to this top of the SACS board can be mounted in a number of different ways. On the back it's got a piece of plastic which provides a GoPro mount, and so there are a very large range of GoPro mountings that you can find on the internet that may suit your hull. This is a very simple installation where we've just used dual lock on the reverse of the rotor display to stick down onto the SACS board. Dual lock is very, very good. It's got a very good grip, and the 3M VHB tape on it will stick very well to a prepared surface. However, it's still possible to knock this off. For example, if the rower's hands come too low in an accident, and just swipe it off. So it's always a good precaution to make sure there's some kind of lanyard. This lanyard is kind of fairly permanent. It's a tie wrap, but you could just have a piece of string. And another little trick is to put a second piece of dual lock just on the inside of the SACS board, so that after the session, if the lanyard were longer, you could just unclip it and move it around into a protected place. Okay. The last thing is just to bear in mind with the other comments about waterproofing is to ensure that the plug is pushed fully home into the socket, and that if there's any water's got in because it's been reconnected, say when there's water around, is just to blow it out and then reconnect. Okay, when you've got all the wires laid out in the boat, you've got the clips where you want them, you're ready to go. The last step then is plugging everything in. So I've got a bundle of cables in my hand that are going to connect into this junction box. On the junction box you've got two sockets which are for the daisy chain of connectors that connect the junction boxes together. Now this connector here is heading towards the next seat down towards the stern, so that goes into the socket mounted marked stern. This cable goes to the junction box heading in the other direction towards the bows, so that goes into the junction box socket marked bow. We've got an Orlock which is on starboard side, so that needs to go into a starboard socket. And then we've got a connector for the rower display which can go into any of the other sensor sockets. That's it. If you're connecting in a logger or something else that doesn't really care which seat it's in, like a boat motion sensor, that can go into any socket, including the bow or stern sockets if you're at either end of the daisy chain. So that's all in place. I've got the clip already done, so I can just slide the junction box in, and now I can just get some tape and secure all the wires in place.